The full moon is not the new moon. Ecclesiasticus 43 verses 5 to verse 8. It says, 5th verse, great is the Lord Yahweh that made it, and at his commandment runneth hastily. He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times. All the high holy days, including the Sabbath, is based upon the new moon and a sign of the world. That's when you get the lunar eclipse, solar eclipse. Those are signs. When you hear about when the Lord died, that was an eclipse when he was on the cross, and that was on a full moon. I'm sorry, it was on the right, it was on a full moon. That's why you had the eclipse take place. From the moon is the sign of feast, like the Passover, and that also includes the Sabbath, and there's even a feast for the new moon. It says a light. Now, when do you see the light of the moon? On a full, you see it on a full moon. So that's not the new moon. It says a light that decreases in her perfection. Her perfection is when it's a full moon, not when it's a new moon. 7th verse again. From the moon, excuse me, from the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreases in her perfection. When is her perfection? When you can see the perfect roundness of the moon. It almost looks like a miniature sun. Let me read that again. From the moon is the sign of feast. So on the Passover, when would you have the Passover? Around about the full moon, which is 14 days going into the 15 days from the new moon. Let me read that again, 7th verse. From the moon is the sign of feast, a light that decreases in her perfection. So when is the moon perfect? Is when there's a full moon, when you see it as like a miniature sun, and it decreases from that point, meaning it starts to go down, which is called waning. Waxing, when you have the new moon, you see a sliver of light. A couple of days later, you see a crescent, then you see a bigger crescent, then you see the half moon, then you see the full moon. And the full moon is around 14-15 days from the beginning of the month. The word month goes back to the word moon. It said the month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing. 8th verse again. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully. What does it mean to increase? When it's new. When you see that sliver of light, and you see a week later, you see a crescent. And then another week later, well, actually, a couple of days later, you'll see a crescent. Then a couple more days, you see another, a bigger crescent, more of the light. Then a week later, you'll see a quarter of the light of the moon. Or I'm sorry, a half. And then in 2 weeks you see the full moon. So when it reaches the point of a full moon, where the moon looks like a miniature sun, it begins to decrease. That's called waning. When the moon is new, you see nothing, or a little slither of light. And that's when it increases. A verse again, the month is called after her name, with the word month means moon, increasing wonderfully in her changing. What does it mean in her changing? It means you go from a slither of light to a quarter crescent to a half moon to a full moon, and then it starts to decrease. So when is the moon, when is there a new moon? When you see almost nothing. Being an instrument of the armies above. What does it mean by the armies above? The stars shining in the firmament of heaven. So it's on to the next one. Shalom.